Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. My name is Pope Metallicus, and welcome back to another Rock and Roll Religion, where we have a topic today that we discussed them yesterday over on Rumble for the first exclusive we ever did on their new single called Panic Attack, which if you haven't heard the song, first of all, and second of all, gone over to Rumble and watched that video, do so. The song's fantastic, and you owe it to yourself. And I appreciate the watch time over there. But these guys are an absolute staple of the genre, have been since its inception, and will continue to be long after bands that are 10 or 20 years younger have faded out. One of the true legends of the genre, and show no signs of fading away. And even though they are going into their 54th year, the immortal Judas Priest. And here to help me do that, as always, whenever we talk about the Priest, we have our own laser-guided, commie-killing Steel Eagle of Death, the Sentinel. How's it going?
What's up, Pope?
Doing good, man. I can't wait to talk about these guys. This is always a topic I enjoy talking about because, let's face it, who doesn't love geeking out about their favorite band?
Oh, absolutely. And I wanted to talk about this record because this is when Judas Priest officially fucking becomes Judas Priest, except for that Evening Star bullshit. But
yeah, I mean, this is I'll call the prototype for their 80s sound. There's still some of that 70s stuff in here, some of which is good and some of which is Evening Star.
I can hear a clear difference between Stained Class and Killing Machine, and it's Rob. And it's his approach.
Not just Rob, it's how they're playing too. They're losing a little bit of the jazz influence and going with more straight up hardcore or hard rock and heavy metal.
Right.
Because like even on albums like Stained Class, you had Beyond the Realms of Death and a couple other ones were a little slower, a little more melodic.
Right.
And there's nothing wrong with that. Beyond the Realms of Death is fantastic.
Absolutely.
But it was going into a new decade, and the older metal sound had kind of run its course in a lot of ways, and punk was the new thing.
And so you had the new wave of British heavy metal kind of.
Yeah, you had the NWO BHM guys starting out, really creating a new sound, a little more aggressive, a little harder, a little faster. And you start seeing them play around with that with Sin After Sin in 77 with songs like Call the Priest or, Dissident Aggressor. Which kind of got a real reaction from people and got them to lead more into the speedier stuff like Exciter and a couple of things off of Stained Class. And you kind of lean back, or they kind of lean back away from songs like the title track on Stained Class. It's a little more pompous, a little more melodic and stuff like that, and more into the straight ahead, hard-nosed bangers that you hear on this.
Right.
Which kind of starts right from the beginning with Delivering the Goods.
Yes, and this is what specifically marks the delineation between 70s Priest and 80s Priest, and really Priest as they exist today, to be honest. It's
heavy metal as it exists today.
Right. It's Rob Halford's rolling of the R's, his vocal delivery, his cadence,
his aggression. He kind of lost that laid back 70s, kind of swag to him and went with this hard-nosed aggression in his voice that really kind of carried him through both Hellbent and British Steel.
See, here's the thing. Rob, until this album, focused on specific clean vocals. From here on out, he mixes what we call, old young Rob is clean, old Rob is mean.
Pretty much, yeah. And he kind of found that again. It's funny, like once a decade or so, he would kind of notch it up a little in aggression.
Right.
Because he went from, 70s Rob, which was almost like a Jimmy Page or not Jimmy Page, Robert Plant or whoever.
Oh, yeah.
Just kind of smooth, very clean, very rock-focused vocals, like a trained singer would.
Yeah.
Which he is.
Well, you listen to Doris Day.
Well, not only he denies that to this day, and I don't blame him. I really don't blame the man.
If anything could be effing
That's his words. It's like singing along to Doris Day. The thing on the world that's gayer than that. And this is Rob Halford, the man himself, saying it. So
yeah, in 2014.
if even he knows it, it's like, yeah. But no, he is a trained singer, so it makes sense for him to fall back on that because that's his skill set. That's where he's comfortable. And then going into the 80s, you heard a lot of bands go with this much dirtier, much more aggressive sound to the vocalists and the guitar work as well. I think that's the punk influence coming in a lot. That was becoming really popular with bands like the Ramones, the Clash. All that was coming out right about this time.
Motorhead too,
and even established bands like Queen were going with that sound.
Okay,
so it made sense for them to at least try it, and I think this was the trial run for it. And they ended up coming up with one of their classics that's played every night they're on tour to this day, being the title track for the American version, Hellbent for Leather.
Yeah. I don't know why they called it Killing Machine. I mean, I get
I don't really get it either. Like, it's not a bad song, but it's a very blues inspired song.
I love it. I
dig the rhythm and stuff like that, but I wouldn't have named the album after it. Which they only did in one country, so.
Yeah. Well, first song is Delivering the Goods. I actually made a music video out of it on my channel. You can provide a link to it, or
I can put that up in the chat here so that people can go find that. Pull up another YouTube tab here.
Let me
like I don't already have 100 open.
It's a little 18 and over-ish, but you're gonna like it.
I mean, if you're watching this channel, you should be over 18 at this point.
Right. I think I got it.
Oh, do you? Okay.
Yeah.
Just put it up in the private chat, and I'll throw it up in the main chat here. But that is one of. There we go.
I think it is. Click it to see if it goes to the right song.
I can't click it in StreamYard.
Okay.
Because it's live in the YouTube chat, but that doesn't show as a hyperlink in here.
Okay, it works. Yeah.
Okay. But this is one of those songs it's got that groove to it, but it's very fast paced and aggressive.
Right.
And this was kind of testing that sound, and unfortunately, it kind of fell by the wayside as they went through the next couple of records. But that's largely because the next 4 records are where 90% of their classic content comes from.
Right. They actually played Delivering the Goods when I saw them in 2018.
They've dived back into a lot of their earlier material on their later tours, which I like to see.
Right. Same.
Especially because I'm a fan of some of their earlier stuff. Like Starbreaker is one of my favorites off of Sin After Sin. Like I said, Beyond the Realms of Death is a fantastic one, as is Victim of Changes.
Victim of Changes. Although, I mean, you can play, oh my God, anything off of Sad Wings of Destiny is just.
Yeah, pretty much.
Chef's kiss,
And then off of this one, half of this record fucking slaps. Like Delivering the Goods.
Rock Forever.
Hellbent for Leather, Rock Forever. Not my favorite, but still a pretty good track. Very catchy one, too.
I love the way Les Binks plays the rhythm on this.
His drum tracks on this are fucking fantastic, especially on my favorite track off of this record, The Green Manalishi.
Oh,
that hi-hat work in the middle of the fills is just fucking phenomenal.
Mm-hmm.
It just gives it this very slick sound to the drums that's just fucking phenomenal.
Yeah, I wish they kept him for the 80s stuff.
Yeah, I get why they didn't, though. Apparently he didn't really want to do a lot of the more aggressive stuff, which I don't blame any drummer for wanting to back away from that. That's very, very intensive.
Yeah, you have to be really, really conditioned.
Yeah, you have to be conditioned for it, and you have to be extremely precise and very technical all at once.
Yeah.
And know exactly what's going on at every minute. And you almost don't have any time to enjoy what you're doing. You're just too busy focusing on everything else. So it's a very difficult style to play. And this was brand new at the time. I mean, like, let's face it, 79 is when Overkill by
Right. I was
Motorhead
just
came
about
out.
to say Overkill.
And Phil Taylor first started playing around with that double bass drum.
Oh my God! Rest in peace. Shout out to
Rest in
Phil
peace to all fucking three of those dudes.
Yeah.
3 heavy metal heroes, without which the genre would not exist in its form today.
Yes, it would
And
not.
like, that's when you know you're an absolute influence on the entire scene. Is you are influencing bands that are in 4 different genres that you're basically responsible for single-handedly.
Right.
And Fizz, this is Hellbent for Leather by Judas Priest.
Can we show
my
an image?
favorite band?
Can we show
What's
an
that?
image of it? I don't think that'll get copyright struck.
No, what's that?
Oh, if you show an image of the album cover, so
yeah, I just don't have it queued up because it was in the thing. I'll have to make a slide for it, but yeah, I mean, the album cover is actually just kind of there. It's not really. This is that period where their album covers aren't all that interesting.
Yeah, I would
like
agree.
This one and British Steel really just don't grab me.
British Steel always grabs me because I love.
Well, it's because of what the album is, not the album.
No. Even the cover with the fucking razor and then British Steel.
True, yeah.
I mean, I've bought shirts several times in several different sizes over the years.
But when you look at the album art on all of Priest's albums, especially from this period, from like 76 to 86,
yeah,
it's not one of the better ones.
I would say Sad Wings is good. Rock and Roll sucks. And then
the alternate cover for Rock and Roll is actually kick ass. Unfortunately, it doesn't make the album any better.
No, it doesn't. Yeah.
And Soul Assassin, good to see you here, man.
Hail, Soul Assassin.
Yeah, this one is one of the oddballs because Stained Class looks fantastic.
I disagree. I don't like the artwork on Stained Glass.
Really? I love it. And Sin After Sin's interesting, where it still has like kind of the darker tones from Sad Wings.
Yeah.
And the older album and the older Emblem as well.
Yeah, but the album art, okay, I get the Mausoleum. If you're saying the album is Sin After Sin, it makes more sense in terms of concept and execution than Stained Class does. Because I don't know what the fuck am I looking at when I look at Stained Class? It's almost like
I don't know, but I just dig the art style. I think it looks really cool.
Okay.
Although it does, I'm not gonna lie, it does kind of remind me of the Silver Surfer a little bit. Either the Silver Surfer or Destro from G.I. Joe from when we were kids. But no, I mean, this one is just kind of their album art wise, but the record itself has artistic style in spades.
Right. Third track, Evening Star, is a shit fun deal.
It's the radio song and single for this album.
You can
rant about. I mean, I don't mind it being more of a pop rock fan than most metalheads, but if you want to rant about it for a second, I'm going to grab some more coffee. But
well, I'll give it a good.
I'll be right back.
I'll give it a good. The problem with Evening Star is they specifically designed it for radio, and if you listen to it, it's so pathetically obvious that they designed it for radio airplay to get some American attention, and that wasn't the track that got them the American attention at all. So yeah, Priest, like any band, will put out a stinker on a fucking amazing album, which is in and of itself amazing. If you are consistent, that is the hallmark of a great fucking band. Consistency in terms of songwriting, in terms of execution, in terms of concept, fantastic. So Evening Star is like the low point of the album for me. But then it gets back right into the title track with Hellbent for Leather.
Which, like we said, is an immortal classic that is still played every night to this day.
Still played every night. Rob rides out on the motorcycle.
Yep.
Even if he hits his head on something and he's bleeding, he'll still.
That's happened a couple of times now.
That's happened a couple of times. I was thinking of the one time on the Painkiller tour where he smacked his head.
Yeah, the one really bad one, but I think he's like bumped his head on a bunch of other ones. I can't tell if that's the crew giving him shit for it and like intentionally setting the bar the curtain a little low.
Oh, maybe he chewed out the crew or some shit.
But or if that's just an accident due to the stage or whatever. But it's still amusing.
Let me ask them about that. What is your most embarrassing moment not related to the motorcycle accident? He starts laughing.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I don't know what Priest doesn't have that many, embarrassing stage moments. Like certainly not the level of like, Graham Bonnet accidentally exposing himself to the crowd when he was with his only show with Michael Schenker.
Oh, jeez.
We actually asked him about that, and he has a good sense of humor about it. It was legit a wardrobe malfunction, essentially.
Damn.
Where you know how tight the pants used to be back then, and got a little too tight that one time. And unfortunately, it happened on stage in front of like 15,000 people.
Was it a zipper or button up?
Mm-hmm.
Or was
I think the zipper just let go. I think like the seam next to the zipper just let go.
Seems I would blame it all on the seamstress.
Yeah, but I mean that's one of those like it's gonna happen at some point when you play games like that. But
right,
it was one of those. And unfortunately, like nobody believed that it was fake, so he was fired pretty much immediately.
Right,
which sucks. He's a brilliant singer.
He's still doing concerts now. He's like 75.
Yeah, with the Graham Bonnet.
Still sounds great.
The Graham Bonnet Experience or the Graham Bonnet Band? I can't remember which.
The Graham Bonnet Band, I think.
And he's got Jeff Loomis as a guitarist now.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So the man has gone through some absolute legends, going from Richie Blackmore to Yngwie Malmsteen with Alcatraz to Steve Vai with Alcatraz.
Yep.
To
the Impertelli Band.
Yeah, the Impertelli Band, and then now with Jeff Loomis.
Fucking amazing.
The man knows how to pick a guitar player.
Yeah.
But getting back to this one, I mean, even the covers on this one, like Green Man Alicia, are fucking phenomenal.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's the best. I mean, to me, it's the best song on this record.
Another one they still play live to this day.
That's been a staple of their live show for like 30 years at this point.
So is, and that Green Man Alicia is a Fleetwood Mac song. And then the other one they do that's probably the best cover is, without a doubt, Diamonds and Rust. Any version of Diamonds and Rust. Well, I don't like the first version, but
I like the Sin After Sin version of it.
I personally, my favorite version of it is the live version that they did on Live in Budokan in 2005.
Okay, the fast-paced version. Okay,
where they started with the acoustic slow stuff, and then it was just more ballady. It wasn't like they didn't speed it up at all.
Yeah, I mean, I can see both versions of that song. I'm just not a fan of that in general.
I hear you.
But I do like I kind of like the 70s like sound to that song on Sin After Sin. I don't know why. I think it's just a really cool hallmark of where they were at and where music was at that time, because it's kind of like a slick hard rock, almost a disco track.
I saw them on the Epitaph tour in 2011. They played this song, and what they did was they did the slow intro, and then when they went to the Diamonds and Rust part, where it goes diamonds, they sped it up to the same tempo.
And that's the original track. That's what I love when they play around with tempos in the middle of the song, which is something they've done a ton on. They did a ton on Panic Attack, which, for those of you who just joined us, I do have a video up over on Rumble if you haven't seen it yet. Me, Sentinel, and 70s did a review yesterday of Priest's new single that they just dropped called Panic Attack. If you want to go check that out, or just check the song out, because it's fucking fantastic. I was concerned that this would fall off from Firepower, because they have a tendency to do that, and it hasn't. Like, not even a little. Although I say they have a tendency to do that, but that's really more of a mid-2000s thing, where they'd come out with one really good album and then one that's kind of
Right.
Because like you had Angel of Retribution and then you had Nostradamus,
Right.
which while not a bad record, wasn't Judas Priest.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I'm trying to find the link to the Rumble. I got it now. I'm gonna post it in
Okay, yeah,
the.
post it in the chat, and I put up a community post linking to it earlier.
Okay, cool.
But yeah, I mean, definitely go check that out. And if you're not following me over there, you might want to, because we're going to do more of those in the nearish future.
Oh, absolutely. We're gonna if you
Whether it
want to
be
listen
whether
to
it
the
be
song,
whether it be new music or old albums or songs that we really want to do a video on, we'll just go
I
do it.
I fucking like
And we can actually play you the songs over there, which is how I wanted to do it over here. But YouTube's gay.
YouTube is very, very just faggy.
And Soul Assassin, we've only had the single release. The rest of the album won't come out until March 8th. Rest assured, we will be doing an album review day of.
And if you were referring to Killing Machine, Hellbent for Leather, it's a solid 8 out of 10.
Yeah, I mean, it's not in my top 5 albums from them, but it's in my top 10.
Yes, absolutely, it's same. So you've got
I consider it like a B tier Priest album, like A tier. Your A list is your Screaming for Vengeance, Defenders of the Faith, Painkiller, like that tier. I'd put this down there with British Steel, Point of Entry, and
you have British Steel in A?
I'm not a huge British Steel fan.
Oh, you've told me that. Yeah.
Yeah, like I don't get me wrong, I like the album, but I'm the same with that as I am with this.
Well, I got my
like where the high points are phenomenal, but there's some filler on there that kind of drags the album down a bit.
Yeah, I'll always have a soft spot for British Steel because that's how
that's how
I discovered Judas Priest was British Steel.
Like I love certain tracks on it, like Rapid Fire, fucking You Don't Have to Be Old to Be Wise, like all that shit's fantastic.
Oh, of course.
But then for every one of those, you have a United.
Yeah, well,
United's not a bad song, but
okay. You're right, but let's compare United to Take on the World, because
I actually like this one better.
Yeah, there's a lot of similarities.
This was their "We Will Rock You" moment of they wanted a simple song that non-English speaking crowds could sing along to.
Right, that too. But the difference between United and this song is it's not as annoying, because they're just saying United, United will stand. Take on All the World is a little different. It's a little bit in the same concept in terms of
the messaging, it's the same.
Yeah, in terms of messaging,
how it's constructed, it's a little different.
And how it's constructed, yeah, and kind of even, it's just it has that same feel, but this is the superior one. Take on All the World.
This is absolutely the superior one. And isn't there a version of this album that "Fight for Your Life" is on? The song that would turn into the greatest song Judas Priest has ever done, being "Rock Hard, Ride Free."
No, Rock Hard, Ride Free is on Defenders.
Yeah, I know, but there's a version of it that's on an earlier album called "Fight for Your Life."
I can't recall.
At least it was released as a bonus track on one release. Again, we're talking albums that have been released and re-released like 6 times at this point, so
yeah,
it's hard to tell what's on the original album.
So I've only got the 2001 remasters, so I can't really. I'd have to go back and look.
It might be this one. It might be another one, but they did release that at some point. And I mean, it's not a great song. "Fight for Your Life" is not a great song. They retweaked it a little bit, and then you come out with "Rock Hard, Ride Free."
Yeah,
like the immortal anthem that is, still played in bars to this day.
I mean, with Rock Hard, Ride Free, it's just one of those things where you can just headbang or bob your head.
And it goes to show you the difference where you just tweak little things with a song. The song construction can stay the same, but you just tweak the guitar tone a little bit or amp up certain parts of it or change how certain things sound, and it changes the entire song.
Yeah.
Or, I mean, even look at the Green Man Alicia. I mean, that song's not particularly heavy when Peter Green does it.
Right.
And then you have this where it's, one of the balls out bangers from this song or from this record.
Yeah. So track 6 is Burning Up. That's a bit of a filler.
Yeah. I mean, it's not a bad, it's one of those ones, like you say, it's there.
It's beat.
It's not bad. It's not good. It's just,
Okay. I would say that is a track that does make this album a B tier.
Yeah, I mean, it's not that it's a overtly offensive song. It's just kind of there.
Yeah.
And you can tell it's there because we needed runtime.
Right.
Because, for those of you who are too young to remember, vinyl records have a set amount of time and a certain number of tracks you can put on them. And, if you're going to record an album, you have to use all 10 tracks.
Right.
Or do 9 longer ones.
Yeah. So I wouldn't have started with, on side B, I wouldn't have started with Burning Up.
Especially as a side starter.
Start with Green Man Alicia and then put Burning Up.
Yeah, that's the thing. Changing the track listing on this could have made the album a lot better.
A little bit, yeah.
Especially for the B side.
Absolutely.
Because side A is actually pretty phenomenal.
Yeah.
And B, that's not to say side B is trash. I mean, you have Killing Machine on there. You have
Before
Running Wild as the tail end.
Yeah, Before the Dawn. It's kind of
Before the Dawn is another one that's just kind of there.
But you've got Running Wild on there, and that's
Running Wild's fantastic.
Short, catchy, to the point,
and kind of the prototype for songs like Breaking the Law.
Yeah,
it's kind of got that a little more aggressive tone to it. A little bit of double bass in the background at certain points, or just a very fast single tempo.
Just catchy and hooky is what I got from Running Wild when I first.
Yeah, I mean it's, but again, in '79, it's not as derivative as it appears, because that's something that other bands were taking from this.
Yeah,
not them copying somebody else.
That's a good point. I got to keep that in mind. They're basically creating the genre from scratch, so some of it is going to sound off, but the good stuff they're going to take pieces and then build on it.
Man, so like a top 10 Priest song list would be really interesting. We may do that. That may be a Rumble exclusive at some point where we just play them.
That's
a good idea.
Priest songs first. Top 10 Priest, top 10 list of Priest songs for stream. I thought you meant top 10 Priest songs in general, and I would have a fucking. I don't know.
Well, I mean, I think it means like us discussing our top 10 lists for.
Okay, I could do that.
We may do that as a Rumble exclusive, so we can actually play the song.
Yeah. Oh, and I'm so happy to be able to do like a Rumble on.
Because I can't stream on Rumble because of how StreamYard works. I can't do custom RTMPs without paying them.
Right.
So that's a little hokey, but what we can do is do basically this format and just pre-record it, and then I'll upload it over there.
Yeah.
Which is what we did yesterday.
Yeah. Either way, any kind of way we can get the audience who watches it to hear the music, so that when we communicate what we're talking about,
and because that's what it's all about, is listening to these records, especially for you younger guys who haven't.
Right.
Because I mean, this is an older album even for us. I mean, this is digging back into the first 5 years of Priest.
I mean, I didn't get this album until at least listening to Priest for 15 years.
I owned this record fairly early on because of the title track.
Okay.
So I was aware of this album fairly early. But it is very, like I said, this is very early in their discography for a lot of people.
Right.
Because a lot of people came in on, Point of Entry or British Steel.
Mm-hmm.
And everything before that is just kind of, the stuff that came before.
Yeah. At least they didn't pull like a Pantera and pretend it never happened.
Oh, I mean, they did later on with Jugulator. Where good luck finding those two albums now.
Yeah, I know, right?
Pretty much as soon as Rob was back in the band, it was like that era never happened.
Yeah, I had to buy Jugulator from like some Russian website.
Oh, you can find used copies of them physically. Same thing with the first 4 Pantera records. I own all 4.
Oh, you can get the new Pantera records on eBay easily.
There's used copies of them, or there's physical copies of them all over the place.
Right.
Because they were very popular, which is why I don't understand why bands like Pantera or Priest don't have those records for sale, especially Pantera, because it's not even like there's any kind of mismanagement or whatever. They own the rights to those songs.
Right. It was probably
In fact, they're the only four
so
records that they themselves own the rights to.
I think they should, because I mean, if they're
At
doing
least
that,
package them up as a box set and sell them.
well, if they're doing that bullshit Pantera reunion tour, at least do like a full fucking discography with unreleased fucking Dimebag and Vinnie Paul tracks. I don't give a shit if they're rough as fuck.
Apparently, that's part of that was at least Dimebag's fault. Like, he didn't want those songs out there anymore.
Oh, I know.
He wasn't happy with them, but I don't like when artists do that. It's like, no, that's part of your journey as a musician and as an artist. This is where you were at in 1985.
Right.
And if that wasn't that great, that's fine, because here's where we're at now.
Right.
So
I
think that might have just been insecurity on Dime's part. Like, he wasn't happy with how that turned out because of things he learned later, or things he knew how to do later.
Right. And here's another thing. I think Vinny also respected Dime's wishes not to release any of that material.
Well, I think the entire band did, especially given how he died.
Yeah.
Where they're like, Dime didn't want this out there anymore. Done deal. Right. It's not out there. Which I can get behind. Like, if that was legitimately in his will, or, let it be known that was what he wanted.
Right.
Then sure.
Pantera's dead. I'm sorry, but
yeah, they're not. I mean, what's out there now?
Vinnie Paul and Dimebag Darrell are that band. I mean, you could probably get away. You could probably get away with having Vinnie Paul, Phil, and Rex, and then have like guest musicians for each song come in and do like a one-off.
Especially like, if you want to have like, especially like a collaborative album, like plug in a guitarist for the song, for the album, like
or plug in a guitarist for a tour, or a select tour dates.
I know at this point, and I know towards the end, Dime and Eddie Van Halen were extremely close friends, to the point where one of Eddie's guitars is buried with Dime.
Yeah.
So that would be an interesting combo. See a Pantera Van Halen collision.
Oh my god, dude, you're making me so sad right now.
That would be insane.
That would have been fucking awesome.
And yeah, man, those two were
the Van Halen of their era.
They were the Van Halen of thrash metal, essentially.
Yeah.
Of like, kind of bordering on different genres, but really solid band. And unfortunately,
drummer kind of thing where they could anticipate.
Yeah, again, another pair of brothers that are drummer and guitar player.
I have the same thing with my brother. It's like we can anticipate what the other is gonna do, no matter what instrument we're playing.
Yeah, it was the black and yellow one.
Yeah, off of Van Halen 2.
Because the Frankenstrat is with Wolfgang now, I believe.
By the way, isn't a bad musician at all. Wolfgang is an excellent musician. It's just
he's really good. He's a better bass player than he is a guitar player, but he's actually really good.
Right.
Which should not be surprising to anyone who knows just how many musical instruments Eddie could play.
Right.
Guitar was like his fourth instrument that he just played to fuck around with. And that's a common trait. And Richie's like that. Where I don't know that he plays other instruments. He plays a lot of different styles, though. And it's not that they're different types of electric guitar. I mean, you have your 6-string regular electric guitar and then a 4 or 5-string bass. There's different body types and pickups and all of that kind of stuff, where that's just varies between models, and you can customize them too.
There's also electric acoustic guitars.
Yeah, those are interesting to play with. I've never really played one, so I don't know how they work.
Right, I'm just giving out examples.
But I'd actually like to play with one.
Yeah, I'm just giving out examples at this point.
Yeah, maybe not for like rock stuff, but like a lot of blues stuff. I could see that being
or just an intro, like The Unforgiven by Metallica. That's an acoustic electric.
Is it? Is that an acoustic electric, or is that a mandolin? Because I hear
I'll have to double check, but it sounds like an acoustic electric at the beginning.
But it has that twang of like a mandolin or something on it, and that may be an artifact of being an acoustic electric. I just don't know.
Neither do I. It's
But
just to my
getting
ears.
back to this record, I mean,
Right. Yeah.
this one's
So
really more of a stripped down sound for Priest, where they were much more technical and much more progressive earlier
right.
with Sad Wings and Sin After Sin and all that. And this is much more of a straight ahead hard rock headbanger type of
It's
deal.
what
And
Priest
that's
is
kind of where
doing.
they would go for the next 5-6 years.
Yeah, but here's the difference. What Priest is doing here is like they hit bullseye on a couple tracks. I mean, they fucking throw the thing and they hit a fucking bullseye on at least half of the album. The other half of the album is them trying different things for radio airplay, or for just filler to get the appropriate amount of time for side A and side B, basically. No, not ecstasy of well, I, ecstasy of gold. Ecstasy of gold isn't an electric acoustic.
No,
You
it's
might
the
be thinking.
Unforgiven.
We were
It's
talking
acoustic.
about. I know they play Ecstasy of Gold at the beginning of every Metallica show.
Oh, okay.
Soul Assassin was asking if Ecstasy of Gold is an acoustic electric mix, and I don't believe it is. But
Don't believe so. I think that's just a clean tone.
right, Sergio Leone did use an electric guitar. Not him personally, but he on a soundtrack, and it was
Yeah,
Once Upon a
most
Time
of
in
the
the West.
soundtracks did use an electric guitar with that. Just tuned differently than for rock and metal. It's much more of a country western tuning.
Yeah, and most of it that he does with the Once Upon a Time in the West soundtrack, which is the guitars feature heavily, is you've seen that movie? Have you?
Yes.
The Frank character. Down, down, and then you've got harmonica, and he plays a harmonica, and
I mean, like that's like the style of more of the western style of country and western.
Well, I noticed that it was Morricone basically giving the four main characters their own distinct.
Well, that's constantly been a thing ever since the opera days of giving different characters their own kind of theme.
I wish they did that. I mean, like for example, if you listen to like the soundtrack for the Magnificent Seven, it definitely has a Magnificent Seven theme, but there aren't distinct leitmotifs song wise for each of the sevens. You know what I'm saying?
And the funny thing is, when you look at it, that's actually something that westerns copied from Kurosawa.
Yeah.
In that every kind of side had their own theme, essentially, and something George Lucas definitely picked up on for Star Wars.
Absolutely.
Because like every different side and main character really has their own kind of variation on the theme.
I would say not even character, moments. Even moments have, like when Luke is looking out to the twin suns. That's not Luke's theme necessarily. That's
no. It's more of a melancholy theme.
It's more of a yearning. It's a yearning thing. A yearning for the call to adventure.
Yes, and or melancholy over the loss of certain characters. Because if you notice, that's something that they play over Ben's death.
Is it?
No, not. Sorry, no. Thinking of a different thing. But I mean, even during the prequel trilogy, you have stuff like Duel of the Fates and shit like that.
Oh, absolutely.
John Williams just proved that he is the greatest composer to ever live.
The goat of goats.
I don't even care just for music, movie composers. I'm talking like music composers. He's up there with guys like Beethoven and Mozart.
Yes, I would totally agree with that, because there's no other way people would have those melodies inside their head without John Williams.
Yeah, and Fizz, I mean, samurai and cowboy and Western movies are like really interesting in terms of who copied who, because you had like 30s and 40s Westerns in the American scene that would then get like brought over to Japan in the 50s, like during the American occupation post World War II.
Right.
And then a lot of guys like Kurosawa and a lot of the other directors that would go on to make samurai movies would basically take that tone and just do their own thing with it. and then that would kind of influence guys like Sergio Leone and John Ford and a whole bunch of the other guys doing westerns in the '60s.
Fucking
And
John
come in
Ford.
and do those.
John Ford loved Kurosawa. But can I just quickly go on?
Everybody loves Kurosawa. Let's face it.
Let me just
Man's a genius.
Let me just go on just a quick little thing. I did research for a paper years ago in college on this very subject. It's not who copied who. There is an interdependent, relationship that Japan and the United States have with each other. It's very interesting. It's
the cultural
the best bits of both are integrated into each other's society.
It's like cultural, not symbiosis, because it happens kind of in waves, but it's like we're constantly riffing off each other. We have the same thing with England.
Right. Exactly. Like Blue Harvest by Dashiell Hammett was turned into Yojimbo.
Yep.
Seven Samurai was turned into the Magnificent Seven. So you've got this back and forth between the two. And again, Yojimbo was, adapted in America by, well, not America, but adapted by Sergio Leone. Yeah.
Yeah. With, the spaghetti westerns are another very interesting subtopic of like movies that would have gotten made 5 years earlier, but Hollywood had kind of had enough.
Right.
But they were still really popular in Italy, so they just went for it.
Yeah, because I didn't know there were spaghetti westerns after like 1970.
I mean, they were still making a lot of them, not only just in Italy, but also in the U.S. I mean, look at Pale Riders, well into the 80s.
That's a spaghetti western.
It's not a spaghetti western, but like that was they were still doing pretty western heavy movies. Well, I mean, up until Tombstone in the 90s.
I would say Unforgiven and Pale Rider share a lot of the same DNA in terms of.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree with that.
They both have this seriousness and kind of tone to both of them. They're not quite the operatic sort of stuff that you see in spaghetti.
It's a different type of taking it very seriously, where
right.
A lot of more operatic stuff can get very pompous and very pretentious about it. Whereas this is just like, we're going to play this completely straight. Like, we're going to take this concept completely seriously and go with it, rather than try to do like either a tongue-in-cheek, like way overblown thing, almost like making a comedy out of it, or try to make it like this really elaborate production, which never suited the Western very well at all.
No, it really didn't.
Westerns are at their best when they're at their simplest. I mean, let's face it. For A Fistful of Dollars, how many lines does Clint Eastwood's character even have?
Yeah, exactly. Or, for example, High Noon. Very simple concept. Excellent.
High Noon or Hang 'em High.
Hang 'em High.
The guy has like 8 lines in the whole movie, and the soundtrack does most of the talking. Like the music does a lot more for the characterization of his character than he does. He's mostly just standing in the corner smoking a cigarette and looking menacing.
Right.
Which Clint Eastwood does very well.
Who does that better, Clint Eastwood or Charles Bronson?
Oh, that one's tough.
Plead the fifth.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't know that you can choose between the two, because they're both very menacing in their own way.
Yeah, all right.
It's like Charles Bronson is fine right up until he reaches into his coat, and then you're fucked.
Yeah, I know.
Which he still has one of the greatest lines in Hollywood history of, "Do you believe in Jesus?" Good, because you're gonna meet him.
Right.
And blows the guy the fuck away.
Oh, if you want great one-liners from Clint Eastwood, watch Heartbreak Ridge.
Oh God, yes.
I was crying watching the shit that was coming out of his mouth.
He's right up there with R. Lee Ermey in Full Metal Jacket when it comes to just kick-ass Marines.
Yeah,
telling with one-liners. Like that and Heartbreak, Full Metal Jacket and Heartbreak Ridge are both right up there, which is shit we all quoted each other constantly.
That's awesome.
But I think one of Eastwood's best lines actually comes from The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly.
You got yeah.
Of there are two types of guys of men in this world: those with loaded guns and those who dig.
You dig.
Dig. But yeah, getting back to
I love
Judas
that
Priest
quote
at this point,
from
again,
Bill
kind of stripping down the sound back to, you know, what made hard rock successful. And
oh my bad, I was talking over you. Sorry about that. I was just
but getting back to Priest to this record, like this again in '79 was sort of a transition album for them, and so you can hear both styles on it. Like you still have like Evening Stars and stuff like that, which sounds much more like their '70s output. And then you have songs like Hellbent for Leather or Delivering the Goods that would sound much the same as the stuff they do on British Steel later. So I think it was a case of them experimenting with something a little different and then realizing that that was the way people wanted them to jump.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
And then just running with it. Running wild, you might say.
Yeah, running wild. So yeah, this is like the height of disco and punk. So Judas Priest kind of has sort of like I wouldn't say identity crisis, but they're at a fork in the road.
Yeah, and it wasn't even just Priest at this point. The entire metal genre was kind of at that convergence point of like, all right, which way? We either go wicked produce and go more towards the mainstream side of it, or we go fast and aggressive and go more punk.
Right. And then considering it was the late 70s and Black Sabbath was releasing albums like, Never Say Die, metal itself had an identity crisis.
And it was up to Priest basically to carry the banner for a number of years there because, in '79, Ozzy was pretty much out of Sabbath by this point, and Sabbath had fallen way off of where they were on like Sabbath Bloody Sabbath or Sabotage.
If Van Halen didn't release Van Halen in 1978, we might not have any metal scene in America specifically.
Yeah, that kind of kept people interested in it, which is funny because Van Halen's not really a metal band.
They're a high energy rock band.
Yeah, but they kept enough of the spirit. Them and AC/DC kept enough of that spirit alive and enough of that market around that it didn't die out.
Well, the reason I point to Van Halen, especially Van Halen 1, is because it's an album that everybody has.
Yeah.
It's an album that created more guitar players than you could possibly fucking imagine. And from that, bands that are legendary. It's like a great coaching tree of.
Well, at this point, I think Eddie Van Halen personally has influenced 3 generations of guitarists at this point.
And will continue to do so for thousands of years.
Into perpetuity.
Yeah.
This guy, he's going to be one of those guys like Glenn Tipton.
Yeah.
That's going to be like, oh, you want to listen to a great guitar player? Here.
Or Richie Blackmore. Here.
Richie Blackmore or Richie Faulkner. At this point, Jesus.
Yngwie.
A lot of Priest fans, and this is one I will absolutely disagree with the community on. A lot of people are like, oh, well, he's just, a knockoff of KK or whatever. No, he is absolutely a different style of guitarist to KK. He's much bluesy.
People actually say that shit?
Yes, I have seen it in comment sections. I have heard people say it personally, and I just kind of stare at them like, what are you smoking? Because he's just as good, if not better than KK ever has been.
He is better than KK from a technical standpoint.
I say this as a man who legitimately loves Ken Downing.
Yeah,
he's one of the greatest guitar players of all time.
I love KK's Priest,
but Richie is by far the better.
KK Downing is an excellent songwriter. Guitar wise, he relies on scalloped neckboard and his whammy bar most of the time, and you can tell.
That's usually how you can tell a KK solo is he's the one using his tremolo bar and kind of playing around with that a lot more.
And
Whereas
you can
Glenn's more straight up shredder.
straight up shredder. Exactly. That's how you tell the difference. And you could literally hear that in every song. For example, Rapid Fire. They're doing like back and forth during the fucking
Or, the police siren from Breaking the Law. That's not, an effect. That's Ken with the whammy
right.
bar.
Right.
But the cool part is Richie can do both. Like, I've heard him do both.
True. And Richie, I mean, like, what a perfect person to just go yoink and then plug and play.
Yeah, I mean, he can do everything Ken can do and has a fairly similar style in terms of how he phrases things and stuff like that, but he's very clean.
And he's a good songwriter too.
Whereas KK tends to run over notes a little bit.
Yeah.
And kind of go a little fast but a little dirty at the same time, there's no problem with that, especially in the earlier production style where recording technology wasn't as clean and crisp as it is now. So you won't really hear it.
And listen, guys, we're not taking a crap on KK. This is just we are discussing the contrast between the two different guitar players, KK and Glenn. Now we're bringing up KK and Richie and how Richie can do both parts, because guess what? Richie Faulkner is a huge fucking Judas Priest fan.
I mean, he's and to the point where he changes the guitar he plays, or he changed the guitar he plays because he's in Judas Priest. Like, he's normally a Les Paul player. And
I think you're right. Now that I remember,
and when he got the gig in Judas Priest, that's when he created that V that I have.
Oh.
When he's like, well, if I'm going to play in Priest, I have to have a V.
Yeah.
Because that's KK played one for a lot of years. I don't think Glenn ever did.
Glenn played a hammer guitar.
Yeah, he was more hammer and ESP.
Yeah.
But
KK was more.
KK had that cherry and white Gibson V.
Right.
And then a different V, I think, maybe a Jackson at one point.
Yeah, that's the other one, Jackson. With the really sharp.
Really sharp and short lower wing. Yeah, that's the Jackson.
Awesome guitar.
My buddy has two of them, and they're outstanding. Short of an actual Gibson V, they're my favorite. But yeah, and that shows the level of dedication he had to this band coming in, where he's like, okay, well, it's not the guitar I usually play, but if I'm going to fit into this band, I have to adapt to them. Because you don't come into a machine like Judas Priest 38 years into their career and
change it up by being yourself
and just be the different one.
Right.
It's like, no, you assimilate into Judas Priest and make your sound part of them. And he has.
Exactly.
I think that's led to a lot of the success of Redeemer, Firepower, and now Invincible Shield.
Mm-hmm.
Which we don't know what it's going to sound like yet. Another 5 or 6 months we will.
I'm looking forward to it, man.
And I cannot wait. I am excited. And you'll know exactly when it does, because you'll be able to hear me fanboying all the way from the other coast. But I mean, this one I think is an interesting album, less so for the songs individually, but more for where this was in their discography and what they were doing with it at the time.
Yeah, absolutely. This is the watershed moment for me that differentiates Priest.
This is the doorway between 70s Priest and 80s Priest.
Yes, that's the perfect way to say it.
And to show you where they were at in terms of where everyone else was, most bands didn't kind of adopt this sound more until 80, 81.
Exactly.
These guys were writing it in 78.
82 even.
Yeah, in some cases 82. But these guys were writing it in 78 and recorded it and released it in 79.
Exactly.
So these guys were a year or two ahead of the curve.
Actually,
and in a large part, we're creating the curve.
In some way, wait, didn't this album come out in 78 too, but didn't come out in the States till 79?
That's right. They released it in late 78 as Killing Machine in the UK. And then in early 79, it came over here. So they were 2 to 3 years ahead of the curve.
So we have two albums, at least in 78, that are blueprints for hair metal in some respect.
Yeah, I'd say so.
I hate using, I mean, glam, whatever. We know what it is. It's high energy, Southern California fucking rock and roll, having a good time,
Yeah,
knocking
like
out
more the hard rock side of the scene.
beers, bikinis, the whole thing. And then you got Priest, who finally just gets it. Finally gets the grit of where they need to go.
And I think part of that is where everybody else was at the time too. Like they've always been musically a lot more complicated than a lot of other NWO BHM bands because they actually predate them by a few years.
They actually were more of a progressive band up until that point too.
Yeah, up until this point, and they kind of. I don't know if they had done everything they wanted to do with that sound and just kind of wanted to do something different, but wanted to like kind of like you say on songs like Evening Star or Burning Up and stuff like that. Those would have sounded much more similar to the fans of like Stained Class or Sin After Sin.
Yeah.
So like they still had the touchstones back to their earlier stuff,
right?
But they were trying a whole bunch of different shit.
Yeah.
With, songs like Running Wild or the title track or Delivering the Goods.
Right.
And I love the fact that they put one of their newer sound songs right at the front of the record.
Yeah. Can you still hear me?
Okay, this is going to be something different for them. It's
like,
so if you're a Priest fan already, this is something different, but we want to see how you like it.
Okay. Could you hear me?
Yes. Now I'm getting a weird echo. Well, not
okay.
echo.
Can you still hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, you got the weird echo because I had to plug the power cord into the goddamn yeah.
That explains it, and that's just EMI. All right. But yeah, that was definitely like this is the midpoint of their transition into British Steel.
Yeah.
Because if you listen to Stained Class and then British Steel, you're like, whoa.
Let me check
what happened in that year.
Killing Machine. Because Killing Machine, Priest. Let me just see who produced it real quick.
Because I think Stained Class was Roger Glover.
Okay, James Guthrie and Judas Priest were the producers of Killing Machine.
Okay.
Tom Allum, the producer for all of their albums, up until Painkiller, because Painkiller was produced by...
Yeah, pretty much from this to Painkiller, he was on every one.
Yeah, and that's all of their classic output. So shout out to you, Tom, wherever you are, because you taught Priest the most important lesson of their career.
Keep it under 5 minutes
if you want on the radio. To 5 minutes, you know what I mean? Fuck that long progressive.
And even they're longer. I mean, Painkiller's like 6.5 minutes, but it doesn't feel like it because it's going about 1 million miles a minute.
Right.
Which, good on them to be able to fucking play that fast for that long.
Shout out to Scott Travis for being able to fucking do that
and
every night.
I mean, if you've heard Racer X before, that's not surprising given where he came from.
Right.
And especially him coming in and being able to play with a brilliant singer and guitar player. Well, I mean, he had that in Paul Gilbert.
Yeah.
So he was like, when it came to, I believe Paul was even friends with a lot of the guys from Priest. And that's how they knew him.
Oh, okay.
So, that it always amazes me how small the metal community, especially back then, was and still is in a lot of ways. Like everybody knows everybody. Because you toured with this guy who toured with them or whatever.
Yeah.
But I mean, Scott kind of got the nod pretty much right away because I think Paul recommended it because he heard Priest was looking for a new drummer. And I think Racer X had kind of run its course for the moment anyway by that point.
Yeah.
Because if you notice, they were active in the early and late 80s or the mid to late 80s. And then didn't do anything until about 2000. Because Scott was in Priest.
Right.
And I think Paul went on to do other things like solo projects and stuff like that anyway. So Racer X kind of got shelved.
He's kind of got his own one-man band thing going.
Yeah, and I mean, don't get me wrong, I love the band, but they never really caught on.
Yeah.
Like, they're one of those bands that was destined to languish in the underground. So like the music, like the speed metal nerds like me absolutely adore them, but no one else has heard of them.
Right.
In fact, we've done an episode on them way back in the day. Me and Xenomorph did one
On their first album?
On Racer X in general.
Oh, okay.
Which is a fantastic band, and you should go check out, because if you want to hear where Scott Travis comes into Judas Priest, it kind of sounds really incongruous with where they were going with like Turbo or Ram It Down.
Mm-hmm.
And then once you hear Racer X, you're like, oh, okay, that's where this came from. That came from the the LA style speed metal sound,
right?
That was coming out about that time. And we'll get to Painkiller one day. I want to save that for a special occasion.
We will.
Because, oh man, it's like it's one of their greatest albums of all time. It's one of the greatest metal albums of all time.
You know what Paul Di'Anno said? He said it's the greatest metal album ever made.
I will disagree with him, because Screaming for Vengeance is the greatest heavy metal album ever made, but it's right up there.
I get where you're coming from, but to hear the singer of fucking Iron Maiden say that is...
Yeah, to hear the OG singer for Iron Maiden say that, like they're your competitor pretty much directly, especially at that time.
Right.
And that's just one of those just like that
respect
is
moments.
Yeah, that's one of those like, well, I mean, I don't agree, but thank you. And I believe Painkiller, I don't know of a video game named Painkiller, but I wouldn't say it's not. And I know for a fact that they sampled shit from this era from 80s Priest for a lot of like Japanese video game soundtracks.
Oh, absolutely.
Like on Mega Man X and stuff like that. You can't tell me they weren't listening to some fucking Priest with half of that stuff. I mean, let's face it. Look at Spark Mandrill. And then look at
Defenders of the Faith.
And then look at the cover for Defenders of the Faith.
Yep.
I'm not saying, I'm just saying. But we've been going here a minute, and I know you guys gotta go, and it's getting late for me. So thank you for showing up this late, guys. I may do things a little later in the future because I'm getting back into work full time. So that may be I may stream later on Sundays. We'll see how the schedule works. But Sentinel, you got anything coming up?
No, man. I'm so fucking busy. I just maybe something here or there, but as far as like the channel goes, it's what you see is what you're going to get for like the next few months.
Nothing wrong with that, man.
Yeah, that's pretty.
But check out his Rumble page too, and check out my Rumble page while you're at it, because we're going to be doing a little more content over there exclusively. Not necessarily because we're going to say things YouTube would yeet us for, but more like copyright freedom and stuff like that, where Rumble's a lot more permissive of fair use than YouTube is. So we'll probably be doing a lot more special stuff over there in addition to this content. Check us out on Thursday or tomorrow on 70s Rock Fans channel for another Canon Film Club on Life Force, which should be an excellent one. And then Thursday night at 8, I believe we are going to be doing the history of punk. So we're going to be doing another rock and roll history stream on the rise of punk in the mid 70s, which kind of dovetails into this a little bit in terms of the sound. So be sure to tune in for that. And with that all being said, take care, stay safe. I love you all, and I'll catch you next time.